This is different from yesterday because yesterday was the explanatory prompt to thesis practice. So today we're doing argumentative prompt to thesis practice. It's pretty similar. However, with an argumentative essay, you have to always make sure that you're addressing the counterclaim or the counter argument. So what will the other side on the position that you're not taking, so the people who take the opposing position, what are they going to say, and how are you going to address that and make the case that your side is right anyway? So we need to make sure that we have some way of addressing that in our thesis statement so we don't forget to put it in our essay. So go ahead and take a look at the first prompt. The first prompt says, write an argumentative essay about whether military drafts should be used in times of national crisis. Your essay must be based on the ideas and information found in the text. Manage your time carefully so that you can read the passages, plan your response, write your response, and revise and edit your response. Your written response should be in the form of a multi-paragraph essay. From your essay must be based on the ideas all the way to the end of that. That's just advice on how to write your essay, or how you should be planning, or what you should be doing as you write your essay, but it's not what your essay is about. So you need to make sure that you're able to differentiate between what's telling you what the essay is about and which sentences are telling you just advice for writing the essay. So this first sentence is actually what this essay is about. So again, it says, write an argumentative essay about whether military drafts should be used in times of national crisis. All right, so the whole essay we're going to write is going to be about the topic, and then we have to make a point about it. So the topic here is actually military drafts. So with a blue pen or blue color pencil or any kind of blue utensil, go ahead and circle military drafts blue. All right, so if you were to write what military drafts are and you wrote your essay about that, that would not be what this essay is supposed to be about. So yes, the topic is military drafts, but they are telling you the point you have to make about it. You have to say whether they should be used or should not be used in times of national crisis. So underline red, whether all the way to crisis, and you can leave off military drafts because that's the topic. But that's the point you're making about it. And in argumentative essays, you're only going to be making, the one point. You're taking a side. But you do have to keep in mind, let's say you say they should not be used in times of national crisis. You still have to be able to say why they should be used and why, even though there are reasons why they should be used, why you're taking a position that they shouldn't. Or vice versa. If you say they shouldn't be used, you still have to be able to say what the other side is going to say for why they should be used, and then provide an argument, refuting why that's not true, or why, even though those are reasons that should be used, we really shouldn't use them. So here's an example of how I might write my thesis statement. Although some will argue blank, military drafts should or shouldn't be used in times of crisis because blank. So whatever side I end up taking, whether it should or shouldn't, I have a space there for my reason. Should or shouldn't be used in times of crisis because blank. And in the very beginning of the sentence, I left space for what the other side's going to argue, so that my reader or whoever's grading my paper knows that I'm going to talk about what the other side says, so that I can have a good argument where I refute it. And I say, even though these are some good reasons why they should be used, here's why they shouldn't, and this matters more. You have to be able to address both sides of the argument. So even though you're picking a side, you have to make sure that you at least say what the other side is saying, and then you give a reason why you shouldn't, go for that reason. So this would be an example of how you could set it up. And if you did all of your thesis statements this way, saying, although some will argue blank, and then you went ahead and said your position on it, or the position you're taking, that would be totally fine with me. This is just an example of how you could do it. So let's make sure we have everything in there we need to have. We need to have our topic, military drafts, and then we need to have our main point here, whether they should or shouldn't be used in times of crisis. Now, I'm always going to look for that counterclaim in your thesis statement, because you should, somewhere in your thesis statement, mention the other side. Because in your essay, you should have a paragraph that talks about the other side and why they're wrong. Say what their argument is and why that shouldn't matter. All right, so this is what a good thesis statement looks like. I'll give you one other example for prompt 2, but this is just for prompt 1, what a good thesis statement might look like. Now let's flip it over on the back. We're going to do the same thing as yesterday. We're going to give an example of what sort of graphic organizer we could use. Columns, and then label each column source 1, source 2, and source 3. And once again, there could be 2 sources, there could be 4. However many sources there are, you're always going to line those up on the top. All right? And for argumentative essays, you're always going to be looking for the things in favor of whatever it is and whatever's not in favor of whatever the topic is. So in this case, I'm going to divide it in half horizontally. Reasons the draft should be used, or reasons it should be used. Reasons it shouldn't be used. I mean, it's that simple. If you did pros and cons, that would be fine. But I like to be just a little bit more specific when it comes to this, because I don't want to get confused as to what my pros and cons are about. It's reasons the draft should be used and reasons the draft should not be used. And that's all you have to do on the back for your graphic organizer. We're obviously not filling this in because we don't have any passages to read that would give us information to fill it in. But if we were given those passages, we would know what we're looking for and how to take notes on those passages. Let's move on to the second prompt. For us is just advice on how to write your essay. I know this because the first sentence told me what my essay is going to be about. It says, explain whether the government should limit car usage for citizens. All right, so the topic of our essay, or what this whole essay would be about, would be car usage. And then the point would be whether the government should limit it for citizens. Okay, so should the government limit car usage for citizens? Now, once again, I want to make sure that I'm prepared to say, yes, they should limit it, or I'm prepared to say, no, they shouldn't limit it, but also that I'm willing to talk about the other side and what reasons there may be on the other side, and I'm willing to refute it and say why those reasons don't matter. So I could set it up the same way I set up my last one and say, although some will argue blank, the government should not limit car usage for citizens because blank. But I'm going to give you a different example in this case so that you have 2 options for how you can do this. So I'm going to say, even though limiting car usage may blank, the government should or shouldn't limit it because blank. So you can say although, you can say even though, you can kind of move around where the topic may come up in your thesis statement. But regardless, you should have a spot there for what the other side's going to say and a spot there for what you're going to say, even though you don't know what you're going to say yet. So I'm going to circle car usage blue, and I'm going to underline my main point red, which is the government should or should not, depending on what side I take, limit the car usage. All right, once you have that copied, you're going to go ahead and flip over the paper, and we're going to do that graphic organizer that goes with it. And this should be fairly easy. It's going to be just like the one above it. So I'm going to draw my rectangle. I'm going to pretend there's 3 sources here. So I'm going to divide it into 3 columns. I'm going to label my columns with source 1, source 2, source 3. And then this whole thing is about reasons why it should be limited or reasons why it shouldn't be limited. So I want to make sure that I'm just specific in what I'm looking for. And I've got my 2 rows. And you're always going to have 2 rows when it comes to an argumentative essay, because you're going to have reasons for it and reasons against it. So I don't think this one's that difficult. Follow the first 2 that we did together in terms of how you're going to write your thesis statement for the bottom 2, but I'm leaving the bottom 2 for you to do on your own. So show me that you can identify the topic and the point you're making, that you can create a thesis statement, and that you can create a graphic organizer just like the ones we've been creating together.